Hi, I'm Ian Thompson, and this is part 3 of our little journey through the Vmate. If you've been following me so far, thank you. If you haven't, please do have a look back through them. I'm hoping just to give you a little bit of grounding and confidence to get out there, use your Vmate and get the most out of it. Today, as I say, we'll concentrate on the app. We'll have a look at all of the features and functions that are hidden in there, including this picture-in-picture mode that you see now called Broadcaster Mode. And a lot of things that are just not available on the Vmate itself. So there is a lot to see and a lot to do. And the Vmate does feel like it likes to work with the app. So, without further ado, let's get started. And the app is called Snoppa Play. Used to be called Vmate, but that changed when we went up to version 2 of the app. Snoppa Play is in both the Google Play Store and on the Apple App Store. And if you've a Huawei phone, I'm assuming you've got it for you as well. I would be very surprised if it's not there in your App Store. If it is and it works, please let me know. If it doesn't or it isn't, please let me know as well. I would be really interested to know what happens with Huawei phones and this. Right, if we click on it and go into the Snoppa app itself, you'll see when it launches, it's actually dominated by a big red button. That button can turn green once it's connected to your Vmate. We'll see that later. But first of all, let's quickly look at the other items that are on the screen. And the first thing, of course, is this great big button here that says Tutorials. If you tap on it, it's actually not a tutorial at all. It's a manual. This is your manual for the Vmate, and it's now really thorough and really good. Quite interesting, some interesting stuff in there, including the one thing that got me completely, which is there, where it says that the Vmate supports up to 512GB SD cards. Now, that's news to me, because all of the information that we've had to date has said 256. Either the manual's wrong, or Snoppa have been wrong all along the line and suddenly realised that actually it supports more than they said. Snoppa, please clarify. Let us know. Is it 512? 512 or 256? It would be interesting to know. It's right up to date, latest version. You've got everything in there. The new look UI is covered. Everything's there. Lots of additional asides. It is very, very good. And if you click where it says manual, you can jump forward to different sections of it without having to scroll through everything. So that's quite useful too. One other thing to say about it, it doesn't just cover the Vmate, it covers the app. So everything that I'm going to go through now is covered in here as well. So I may well be wasting my time. Hopefully I will give you a little bit more background and understanding of those things than reading the manual ever could. So, finish with the manual. Let's click back and go back to the main screen of the Vmate. The next button down says My Creation. If you tap on that, it basically gives you all of the things that you've been doing on your Vmate itself, and you can select them, delete them, and do whatever you like with them. It's all up to you. But that's there as well, shortcutting to those. Then there's two smaller buttons here, and if we start by looking at this one, that will take you to a video editor called Vlog Now if you have it installed. If you don't, it will take you to links to install it from your relevant app store. And looking at it, it does look to be a fairly good video editor. And if you don't already have one that you use on your phone that you're heavily invested in and know well and love, then have a look at this Vlog Now, because it does look quite good. It's a great way to stitch together a few bits of video, cut a few bits of video out, or add a few transitions in there, and so on and so forth. It does seem to have quite a lot of features in there. I've not really used it yet myself. I will have to do that at some point. But it does look good. I can say it looks useful. So, coming out of there, that last button, this one here, is a link to web chat. So let it load, and there you have it. Hi Snoppa is here, it says. My own experience with this is usually Snoppa aren't there. If you time it right and you get it when this is manned, fantastic. They're really helpful, really good people on there who will do their best to get you running. If you time it wrong, all it does is starts an email chain. It will start an email chain where you can report your fault, etc., and get some help that way. It's just the same as emailing snoppa.com. support@snoppa.com, I should say. So very, very useful though. If you catch them on Live App, I've had some long conversations here with them and they have been incredibly helpful. So that's another little bonus feature there that's sat in this main screen. So right, so this big red button is the thing that we need to talk about now. Now, when you come to connect to your Vmate, open your app first, I would always advise, then switch on your Vmate, simply because the Wi-Fi on the Vmate shuts down after 30 seconds. It will do a little Bluetooth handshake and say hello to it again and get reconnected, but it just takes slightly longer if you let your Wi-Fi drop first. So I'm going to turn on my Vmate now. Press and hold the power key for a couple of seconds, up it kicks. And if I'm patient enough, that red button will turn green, but I'm just going to tap and you can see there it says my Vmate in a list. I can tap on that as well and speed things up, but there you go. Automatically it's straight through. If that button does turn green, and just to show you it does, there you are. That's what it looked like when it's green. Just tapping that, again, we'll go straight through to connecting. Now I'm connected up, I can see my Vmate. Let's run through all these controls that are on here. And I'm going to start at the top left. And at the very top left, you can see, I hope, let me just outline it for you. Just up here, you can see that there's a button that's got pictures in it, and that will let you go on and look at what's on your SD card on your Vmate, or if you tap on local, it will show you what's on your phone itself. And you can also tap select all, select multiple items, select one, and it'll allow you to delete them, etc. If you're on your SD card and you do the same, it will also offer you the option of downloading to local, in other words, to your phone. So useful little screen there where you can review, watch your videos, download them, etc. Let's just show you how you download something. The 1 second video there will do. Right at the top, I'm going to tap on it. Up it comes. I can tap anywhere on that video, and as you can see on the right hand side, there's an information button. There's a download button and a delete button. If I click the download button, you'll see it comes up, it says download or cancel. If I click download, and it will take a few seconds, but it will download it straight to my phone. And when it's done, you'll see on the right there, the download symbol is now greyed out. That was a very short video, so it took very little time to get there. If I now want to delete that from my system, if I click on the little delete button there we go, it's gone. And I'm on to the next one. At the top there, you can see it says 1 of 20. If I scroll, I can scroll through them and it counts through the items that I've got there. So, little arrow at the top left is there on every screen to go back a step. Very useful little thing, I have to say. You can have a look at anything in there, delete things that you don't want, so on and so forth. Next button down looks like a camera. If I tap on that, it brings up a shooting mode screen where I can decide which mode I want to use. At the moment I'm in video. There's a lot more modes in there. We'll go into those modes a little bit more in a second. We won't dwell too long on them because of the simple fact we've already gone through most of them, so I will just look at what's different shortly. But first of all, let's finish going around these buttons. So the next button down is your gimbal modes, or tracking mode as it calls it here. It's not tracking mode, it's gimbal mode. And for some bizarre reason, they've called them by slightly different names to what's on the app. What's on the app. Giving them slightly names in the app to what's on the Vmate itself. So you have a pan track mode, a fast pan track mode, a pan tilt track, which is the same as the full mode on the unit itself, a fast version of that. Oops, come out of there accidentally. And you also have a lock mode and an FPV track mode. Now I am just going to mention the lock mode because we talked about the lock mode and I pointed out that it was actually doing what the pan mode does, which isn't right. But on here, it's actually doing the right thing. If I tap on lock and pick up my Vmate, now it's on lock, it will keep looking forwards, and if I rotate, it will try to maintain. So I'm rotating the body of the camera there. It's no longer panning. It still does all the same other things. If I tilt the camera backwards and forwards, it tries to keep the horizon level. If I tilt from side to side, if I roll the camera, in other words, it still tries to keep the horizon level. But it no longer pans. So it just tries to keep that gimbal pointing forwards. So it does actually do what it's meant to do now, which before obviously it didn't. Right, so okay, that's that mode. I'm going to come out of it and just go into any other mode, doesn't matter, just for now. Next one down is a little cog symbol, and that opens up some little setting things that you can do. First one is you can add a grid to your screen if you want to use the rule of thirds. If you don't understand the rule of thirds, bag me a question and I'll do a video all about it. You also have the option of the grid plus a diagonal set of lines as well, all there to help you when you're composing a scene or composing a photo. That's the idea behind those. I'm going to turn it off by tapping it again. If they're not highlighted red, they're off, basically. Broadcaster mode, if I tap that, my face appears. Hello. So I can move that around the screen. It moves in little increments across the top. However, down the side, it's one big increment. It's top or bottom. You can't go into the middle. But along the bottom or along the top, you can move it to anywhere that you want. If I tap that broadcaster mode again, so that it's no longer red, I'm gone, which is probably a relief to you all. Left hand, tap that, it's exactly what it says. It changes it to a left-hand mode. So if you're left-handed, you can have the button on the side that you would prefer. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to turn that off as well. Lens vertical there. If you change the orientation of your lens on your Vmate, as you do with the app, you have to change in your app to tell it you've done it. It's exactly the same here. If I tap lens vertical mode, it comes up there telling me I no need to rotate my lens so that the dots on the lens are vertical too. Otherwise, as it is now, everything's just gone sideways. But if you're in normal landscape mode, as I am with the dots horizontal, just tap it again from vertical mode so it goes back into being white, and then it's not on. Currently I'm on full screen mode. The menus down either side are grey and you can see the full width of the frame. However, if I tap that and make that white, as you can see now, the menus have become black and I've cut off the edges of my frame. I like it to be on the full screen mode personally. I much prefer it. I have an option in here to calibrate. I'm not going to calibrate right now, but the option's in there because calibration, as we all know, is a little bit fiddly. So rather than fiddling about on the camera itself while you're trying to get this thing to calibrate, you can just do it from the app. Live, if I tap on live, it brings up all the information I need if I want to do a live feed to, say, Facebook or YouTube or similar. So you need to enter your stream key and URL, etc. And you can save them in there, and thereafter that button should jump straight to them. I'm not going to do that and tap anywhere else on the screen, and it'll say goodbye and off it goes. Not going to do that. I'm not set up to do a live broadcast right at this moment. Synchronise the phone button does exactly what it says on the tin. Be very, very careful. When you tap it, there's no warning. It will just synchronise your phone and copy everything down from your SD card on your camera to your phone, which can take a while. So just be aware of that. Underneath that, it says format SD card. It also tells me how much space I've got on my SD card. If I tap that, it does give me a warning, so I can either tick format or cancel. You're up to date tells me I'm not awaiting any firmware updates or any software updates for the app itself. So that's fantastic. Everything's there. And underneath are the details. So there's my device name, the version of the app. It's the firmware itself, I should say. And this .22 is correct at the time of filming, and app version 2.0.3 is correct at the time of filming as the latest version. So there you go, folks. That's very quickly what's in that settings mode. The bottom button is a little home button, takes you back to that main screen at the beginning, so if you want to refer back to your manual for any region, there you go. I'll reconnect by tapping that big green button. So that's all the things down the left-hand side. The stuff down the right-hand side changes by mode, and I'll just very quickly run over that. So at the moment I'm in video mode, so the options I get in there are the options to change my resolution. Now, the first time you go into 1080p on here, it will give you a little warning again about it taking up more space and so on and so forth. But once you've okayed that message, you don't have to see it again on here. Snoppa, make it the same on the app, on the firmware, on the Vmate itself, will you please? That would be useful. You can also change your frame rate and your format, as we've discussed before. I'm not going to spend any time going over these because we've talked about them at length. If you want me to go over them any further, I will, but in another video. Little grey arrow at the bottom here, just quickly draw your attention to. If you tap on that, in video mode I have the options to manually override the ISO, the EV, the compensation if you like, so I can make the scene brighter or darker to cope with different settings, you know, according to what I actually need, you know, so we can correct a little bit for the automatic exposure setting of the Vmate. I can also change my white balance and manually set it to anything that I want it to be. So that option is there. I do feel that the white balance isn't quite calibrated correctly, and it seems to be under-reading or over-reading or whatever it might be, but it's just not doing the thing it should. To get any of them back to the start, you can either scroll all the way back or you can just double tap them, and lo and behold, they go back to their original settings or automatic. So that's fairly quick and simple in there. Right, one other little button that's on there when you're in video mode is a little microphone button, and it allows you to select which device you're going to record from. So at the moment it's saying phone microphone. If I tap on Vmate microphone, it will now use the Vmate's mics to do a recording. One thing I should say as well, if I had a Bluetooth headset on right now, it would give me the option to use that, and so on and so forth. It's a really useful little gizmo to have. Your phone will generally record better audio than the Vmate will, but for now it doesn't really matter. So that's all the features that are there. The main screen itself will also change slightly depending on which mode you're in. So because I'm in video mode at the moment, there are a few features that might not be necessarily there on all others. One feature that is always there is up near the top left here. You've got an indicator of your battery, etc. So the top one that shows the battery is your Vmate battery itself, and it's a rough indicator of how much life you've got there. Beneath it is a little line, and that little line is the indicator that shows you how much juice is in your phone itself. So it gives you an idea for both, which is useful. It also tells me I have an SD card installed and how much space I've got left on it. Very handy to know. So that will be pretty much the same throughout modes. However, some bits will change, as I said. And one thing that you won't see on any other mode but video is this little button here, towards the bottom left. And that little button is your means of tracking things. So if I tap on that button, I've now activated tracking mode. If I put something in view, like my Vmate palm there, let's move it just over here a little bit more. What I'm going to do is lift up my Vmate, point it towards that Vmate palm, and just drag my finger across the screen to produce a little yellow square around whatever item it is. Now wherever I move my Vmate, oh, it lost it very quickly there. I didn't like that. Let's try it again. Let's come out and let's go back in and just try doing it again. And there we go. And as you can see, it does its best to track wherever you go, whatever you do. it tries to stay on that object for you, or that face, of course. So that's your tracking mode. Tap the button again and away it goes. So one thing you have as well in video mode, you have a 180-degree flip option on the bottom right, which if I tap that button, around it goes and flips 180 degrees and gives you a lovely view of my sleeve. So we'll spin back by tapping the button again, and here we are back to where we started. You can reset the gimbal if you've been playing around with movement, which we'll do now. If you see this button here, this is your multifunction little button. Put your finger on it or your thumb and drag it up or down or side to side or even diagonally, and you can get it moving. There you go, it's moving diagonally. You can get it moving. The further you move your finger, the quicker it moves. It's not the most controllable. It's not as controllable as the controls on the Vmate screen itself. It's slightly, I don't know, it just doesn't feel quite as good as those controls. It's not quite as easy to control, but with a bit of practice you can do quite well with it. Double tap that button and it resets the gimbal, and you see at the top it says reset camera there underneath the battery. So if I tap that, double tap that again, you can see underneath the battery symbol it says reset. So that enables you to get back to it. The only other button on that screen is the bottom left. It says live, and all that is another way of linking into that live stream. I'm not going to go into that, I've just done it already. So those are the settings on there. Now those settings will change slightly, and one interesting one is, I'm going to show you this on another setting, but trust me that this particular item becomes available as soon as you press the big red record button at the top right. I'll tell you what, in fact, no, let's make sure I'm on the Vmate microphones. Yes, I am. Let's just tap that big red record button at the right, and there you go. You can see a counter at the top. You can see it's recording, it's flashing away. It's showing me I've got my Vmate mic at the top as well. Now, two little interesting buttons that have appeared. The first one, bottom right, is a little button which if you tap on it, you can change your gimbal modes. So very, very useful. Tap on that, drag your finger to whichever mode you want. On the left, it's greyed out and it's not so easy to see. So let me just see if you can see just here. Just here is a little line with at the top it's got a flower and at the bottom it's got an infinity sign. Now that little line is your manual focus line, and if I drag my finger up and down it, I can change the focus and I can set a manual focus position. I can do that out of focus if you like. I can bring it into focus, leave it there. Now that will stay as is as long as I don't touch anything other than a button on the screen. If I touch anything else, I'll lose that, but the buttons aren't mapped, so I can touch any of the other buttons and not change that manual focus setting. However, if I touch anywhere else on the screen, a little white circle will appear, as you saw there, and that will have manual focus, and it's now gone back to automatic mode. I can choose anywhere on the screen that I want to be focused though. I can choose up here at the top left. I can choose over here at the right and get that in crisp focus. So anywhere I want, I can choose on that screen. So it is more versatile than the Vmate screen when you're selecting where you wanted to do a focus on. Right, so that has really covered everything that's in there. Let me stop this darn thing from recording. When you record something, as you see at the bottom there, when you finish, a little preview pane pops up. If you tap the preview pane, it opens up the same thing that the top left button does, but just takes you straight into that particular item for you to review through. As you can see, it's the most boring video ever taken. I also have the option on there to stop it or to just delete it, which I'm going to do. So there we go, very simple. Going back into those modes, photo mode, you get all the same options that you would do on photo mode on the unit itself. So I can select whether or not I record in JPEG or DNG for RAW files. I can select the aspect ratio of that photograph. I also get some interesting things if I click that little down arrow at the bottom. on this, I can not only select my ISO, AV and white balance, I can also select my shutter speed and how fast or slow I want my shutter to operate, which is quite useful. If only you could do that when you're in video mode, it would be really useful, because some of us want to be able to set that to the optimum speed for our frame rate. But there you go. Again, double tap it and it's back to automatic. So that's the only thing to point out there about the photo mode. Going back into the, I've gone into the gimbals, I meant to go into the modes. The one other thing in here, there's a couple of things that weren't there originally and aren't there on the app. One is trace time-lapse, the other is light painting, and the other is hyperlapse. Those options are available only on the app at the moment. Hyperlapse, very, very straightforward. I'm not going to dwell on it in any way, shape or form. It is time-lapse, but it's time-lapse for when you're carrying the camera with you. It's aimed at that, basically. Light painting, if you tap on it, it will just tell you it's developing. There used to be another one called light field as well, but it's now just a black square, and Snoppa seem to have dropped that idea for a while. We might see it in the future. All of the other things have got the time-lapse things have got the same options that you have on the time-lapse on the unit itself, except trace time-lapse, of course, which doesn't exist on the unit itself. Now, with trace time-lapse, I can rotate my gimbal round, and let's say, and there we go. Whoa, come back a bit. Let's start there with my lovely vintage Pentax lens on my old K3. If you look at the top there, it says add trace point here. If I tap that little plus sign, it adds a point. That would be the starting point of my video. I can then use the joystick control to move to where I want to be next, add another little scene. I can then move across a little bit and add another scene. And then I could, if I so desired, move sideways a bit more, come down. There's me. Let's have one of me. There we go. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're allowed up to 5. So let's finish off by scrolling a little bit to the right and clicking one there. So there's my 5. As you can see, I've no longer got a plus sign. I can't pick any more. One button up there, though, it says preview track. If I tap that, it will show you where the gimbal's going to go, but it's a greyed out screen. I think this is another little bug that Snoppa need to address. So if we look at it, you can see it's following that route that we just set, but it's not right yet. It's greyed out when you do it. All the other options are exactly the same. Oops, pressing the wrong place. All the other options are exactly the same that you get for all of the time-lapse, except you've now also got this always on button, which you can have on auto or always on. What do they do? Very, very simply, sorry, my laptop's having a hissy fit in the background. Very, very simply, if you've got it on always on, it will, on keep on, it will keep your screen on your phone on permanently. If you put it on auto, it will dim it right down to save your battery. That's all they're for. It wakes up again if you tap on it. You've also got all the options that you've got on any other video mode for ISO, EV and white balance. I'm not going to dwell on those. I'll just come out of them and concentrate on things that you haven't seen before, you see. So, right, oops, I've tapped the wrong button. And again, get there in the end. Hum to yourself, folks, while I have a little bit of a breakdown here. One thing I will show you, all of those night shot modes are all the same. Slow motion mode, same options that you get on the app. You have the option to record for your recording codec, and you also have the option for how slow you want the slow motion to be. That's all the options you get. Night shot mode, now I did slight this a little bit when I did the last video, but I have gone away and had a little play with it, and it's actually better than you think. It does much more than you think. So again, if we look at the options, if we go into the options menu, the auto mode that it's on by default, that's why I thought it was rubbish. The auto mode is rubbish, frankly. You get the option to change your formats between JPEG and DNG if you want to record the raw files, and you also get the aspect ratio selection. But let's look at the other bit where it says exposure, and here, whoops, tapped in the wrong place. Here you can slide that across, and the exposure is actually how many exposures you're going to take. So times 3 would be 3 exposures. What does it do? Well, when you take a high ISO picture in dark conditions, they're very noisy and grainy, and they don't, they're not very clear. So what it does is it takes several shots and layers them one on top of the other, and you can take up to 7 shots using this. So you can also look at the little arrow at the bottom there. You can also set all of the features up on what ISO setting you want and what shutter speed you're going to do it at, etc. You can make those manual or you can leave them automatic. Either way, doesn't really matter. But what it will do is layer those things up one over the other. And the idea behind that is anything that's actually there in the picture, any object in the picture, that is there on each picture. So when you layer them one on top of the other, all you do is enhance that outline. Those pixels add together and make them brighter and more solid and clearer. Whereas any noise pixels vary from frame to frame, so they get cancelled out. So it's a way of reducing that noise, increasing the sharpness overall of your picture, and giving you a much brighter picture than you would normally be able to get whilst maintaining some kind of quality to it. And it's actually pretty good. It's worth a play anyway. I would suggest you go away and have a play with it. I was more impressed when I took it off auto mode than I thought I would be, let's put it that way. Okay, so having done that bit, what's next on our menu? I think if we just pop back into those modes and just double check we've covered everything off. Yeah, the only other mode I mentioned is panorama, and that's exactly the same as panorama on the unit itself. You can predetermine what settings you've got. One thing that I have forgotten to mention though is when you go into any of the settings, if I tap on there and then click that little down arrow, anything that I set in there is stored. So if I turn off the camera and turn it back on, it tends to remember all those things. So it's worth going in there and making sure you're on the right white balance and things before you start shooting. If you've overridden them at all, took them off automatic, they won't go back to automatically, if that makes sense. Right, okay. I think we've covered all those modes. We've covered everything on there. The only button I haven't mentioned is that little home button there. I think I have mentioned it actually. It takes me back to that main page. If I turn off my Vmate, after a few seconds, that button will go red again, and there we go, we're disconnected, and I can close my app down. And I'm just being attacked by the cat at the moment that I do that, so that's quite funny. Right, folks, that really is it for this video. Nothing much more to mention on there. Go away, as always, go away, play, experiment. It's experimentation that you learn through more than anything else. If you've any questions, fire away. I'm always happy to answer. And try hitting that little subscribe button as well, so you see all the content that I produce about the Vmate, the Palm, cameras, so on and so forth. And so there ends another little video. If you'd like to see something next, please tell me and I'll try to oblige. But for now, thank you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.